Welcome to the Refreshing Leadership Podcast with me, Maya Goodker, and specifically welcome to our August Refresh series. This month, I am resharing some of our most impactful episodes centered around the theme of rest, rejuvenation, being a little bit more dreamy. If you're a long-time listener, there's a chance you might be hearing one of these episodes for the second time. This is actually good news. When I listen to an episode, a podcast episode, the second time, that's when I actually integrate it into my life. The first time, I'm listening at a cognitive, intellectual level, getting familiar with the concept, which is of course super helpful. So if you're listening to this for the first time, my hope is that all of the episodes this month will help you embrace a refreshing summer, whatever that means for you. I personally am taking a much needed creative pause, and I encourage you to join me in your own version of that. I look forward to connecting with you in the second week of September. And until then, I hope these episodes help you to really embrace your own refreshing August. Let's dive in. This exercise is called a list of 100 dreams, and it is something that Laura Vanderkam talks about in her book 168 Hours, and she also refers to it on her blog, and she's also shared a few of her a list of 100 dreams lists over the years. She's, I think, refreshed them at sort of quite chunky intervals, like every 5 years or so. It's not a yearly update from what I can see. So the idea here, and so while it's come via Laura Vanderkam, it originally came through a career coach, Carolina Ceniza-Levine. And the idea here is to create a completely unedited list of anything that you might want to do or have more of in your life. So it is like a bucket list, but with bucket lists, people don't tend to get all the way up to 100 when they're creating those. And the idea of pushing yourself to 100 is to really force ourselves to confront, the fact that we don't always know exactly what we really want. And in this process, we have to really confront that. So some structuring around how we can actually undertake this exercise. I'm going to talk you through that now, and also how I went about it, because I had a go at this weekend. The practical pieces, the sort of the how and the when of doing this. Hopefully you have a journal for 2023, which may have some notes pages at the front or the back. Some of these new journals do actually contain goals pages where you can list things out. And I know that my one actually had a bucket list page. It wasn't 100 long, which means I haven't actually got to 100 yet, but I did fill out everything that was there. And then I added a few more actually as they came to me during the day after doing the exercise. So you want to have somewhere that has a bit of a permanent feel to it. If that is actually your Apple Notes or something on your computer that you feel is going to be easier for you to refer to, or even something that you could email yourself that's easy to search then using a Gmail type search function. These are all different formats that you can use. I do think there's something good about the written word. That said, when you type things, you can refine them, and you can create something that doesn't look messy if you're constantly refining it, which would be a nice thing to be able to do. So first thing is just deciding your medium. If you are going to do it in a journal, I did make sure I had a good pen. So I've been picking up a few nicer liners recently, like black ones, which write really beautifully on the page. And I think that's just one of those little things that the planner community really take pride in. They like having good pens. They talk about the scratch on the page, the kind of the grip of the page. These things seem to matter to them. And then, of course, having a good beverage next to you, coffee or a tea, something warming maybe in this time of year, and your kind of space for review. So hopefully you can carve out about 30 minutes for yourself to do your weekly review. And once you've done that, you might be in that reflective, slightly more inspired space. And that's when it's a perfect opportunity to dive into this as almost an extended exercise on top of that. That's at least how I carried it out. And it can be done in a few different ways. Laura has described that the first maybe 10 to 30 items that people will add can be travel items. People just often have really lots of different places that they would love to visit, and that becomes quite an easy starting point. Even for people like myself, that was the first thing. I'm not always the quickest to plan a holiday, and yet the first 10 or so items were travel items. Then the interesting part happens because you run out of items and you think to yourself, gosh, I really can't think of anything. And I think some really interesting things happen here, because items which might have been subject of a little conversation here or there, but they were maybe like half a conversation, they never really turned into anything significant, suddenly those become really useful fodder for this exercise. And so you can bring some of those into reality by capturing those on the page. And that can be a useful way of sort of scraping the barrel and keeping the momentum going and just keeping going, keeping on writing and jotting down whatever you can. And there is an element, I feel, of that type of flow of just not stopping too much and allowing your brain to just keep on going. If you're really struggling, categories can be a really nice thing to add in, maybe once you're into your 30 or 50th item. And typical categories that I've seen being used are personal, travel, family, work, finances. And as we've talked about in previous episodes, it can also be nice for you to just add personal categories. So you might want to add, in my case, might add house, and you might have some other hobbies that you want to add. It could be related to music, for example. You could have a whole category dedicated to music, festivals, concerts, things that you want to attend. And that might really help, because it might help us to remember what some of our passions and hobbies are, and then think about the really cool things that we might want to do in those spaces. So these are all different ways that you can do it. I'm sharing these because I want to remove blockers from you undertaking the exercise and really kind of remove any resistance you might have to doing it. It really doesn't take that long. It's nicer when you've got good stationery. But apart from that, once you've got going, I think the really interesting thing for me was once I got to the bottom of my page, I'd sort of finished the exercise. And as I went about the rest of my day, I kept getting ideas. I was like, oh, I could put that down. And oh, maybe I should have put this down. And I went back and I added to the list. And the interesting thing that I think is so powerful about this exercise is that when we're doing goal setting or vision work, even, sometimes we feel like there's a pressure then, once we've written a goal down, there's a pressure on us that we're going to have to do all the things to make that thing happen. The very freeing part of the bucket list is there's no time frame on here. This is not a 2023 bucket list. This has a much looser time frame on it, which is whatever you want and whenever you want. When the timing is right, these things can happen, which is really, really freeing. I've talked in a few different places about what timescales do to us, and when we have time specific things, the impact it can have on us. Even when I was talking about doing my Van Gogh jigsaw puzzle, the fact that there was no time frame on it is the reason why it did get done. If there had been a achieve X by Y date, that puzzle would have had to have been tossed. It wouldn't have met the criteria and it would have been out. The beauty of these bucket list items is that they don't have an expiry date as such. And so we can be really free when we put them down, but we do know that by putting them down, we are just bringing them into our world that bit more, and we're making it that bit more likely that these things will happen. And they do become a really useful reference point when we are undertaking goal setting exercises. So it may be that then once you've got this, you can then scan that list and you can do a few different things. One is you can look at the low hanging fruit. So you can look at the stuff which is either from a cost or a time perspective, not that hard to do, or is maybe on the cusp of happening anyway, and all you need to do is lean into it. So for example, on my bucket list, I put do a girls trip, and there is talk of one right now, and I just need to lean into that and, get book my flights for it. So sometimes it just might make us that little bit more up for doing the things that are circling in our horizons anyway. But likewise, we might just look at a few others and think, oh, those are actually quite doable. I could potentially bring those into my goals for this year, and that's fine. No pressure though, because this is a fun list. It's an exciting list. It's a list that ignites some optimism and excitement and energy in us. And so what we don't want it to do is be in any way stressful. So one of the reasons I love this is because it really forces us to think about what we want out of life. It's also a really nice accompaniment to that goal setting process where we can often quite easily rattle off 5 to 10 things that we'd like to achieve in a particular year. And that's because, I know that a lot of my clients are very good at attaining things and setting out clear objectives. This is not the hard stuff for them. But the bit that can be a little bit harder is all that other stuff that makes life really exciting and, makes us feel like we're in a life well lived and we're having those experiences and we're building those memories and we're creating memories. So that's where I think it can be a sort of a useful follow on from this. Once you've created your list, you can then use it in a few different ways. You can see if there's anything that looks actually quite doable or that's hanging around on the horizon anyway. You can see if there's anything that actually would be really beneficial if it was in your 2023 list. And then that's it. It just sits there and you've got a little bit closer to accessing the stuff that matters to you, understanding the things that really light you up. Near Ale and I think also Laura Vanderkam often talk about the fact that we have leisure time. We do have leisure time at our disposals. We might not have lots of it on any particular day, but we do have leisure time. And sometimes the issue is not actually whether we have the time, but once we do have the time, knowing what to do with it. And again, this list of 100 dreams is a really useful supplement to helping us understand how we want to use that leisure time. And that's why I think it's nice to have a real mix of things in these dreams, things that are more attainable, more local, and the bigger things that might include, an expensive flight somewhere and a more, hefty time commitment. So that's the list of 100 dreams. I would love to hear if you do give that a go. I think it's a great supplement to our really well-honed 2023 goals list. It's something that's probably quite nice to review every now and then, like once a month or even once a quarter. If you're in a busy phase of life with young kids, for example, it can feel overwhelming to even contemplate some of those bucket list items and the reality of them and the practicality of them. Certainly, I feel like that sometimes. I think, gosh, yeah, I would love to go here and there. But when I then think of all the things I'm going to have to do to make that happen, I sort of get overwhelmed and don't want to do it. I think what this bucket list does is it creates a separation between those great ideas and your current self so that you don't feel like you have to do any of that stuff right now. And yet we're not ignoring those things and we're starting to pin down what matters to us, and we're accessing more of that understanding of what it is that we love to do. Have a go. Let me know how you find it. And I will be back next month, with a bit of a monthly theme around decluttering. Don't worry, I'm not going to get you to clear out your junk drawer. We're going to be looking at decluttering all kinds of aspects of our working lives and beyond. So I look forward to bringing you that new content next week. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Executive Coach podcast with me, Maya Goodker. If you've been listening to the show and you feel ready to take your work and life to the next level, you want to accelerate the process, or you're feeling a little bit stuck, or you've got some blockers, the easiest and the most accessible way to get started is through my Vision Builder program, where you will receive intensive one-to-one coaching with me, as well as a lot of other awesome resources. Drop me a DM on LinkedIn. I'm easy to find there as Maya Goodker, or send me an email. The email is detailed below in the show notes. Just put one word into the subject title or into the message, which is vision, and I will send you the details. Or if you're considering working with me via your organization, just drop me a message to the same places with the words executive coach, and we can arrange some time to discuss your specific needs. I can talk you through my one-to-one and team coaching services, and also now my popular 1 or 2 hour live workshop, which is entitled Career Growth in a Hybrid or Virtual World. I started running this last year in 2023. It's gone down a storm. It seems to really hit the nail on the head for organizations who want to invest and support their employees on career growth, who want to have an impact on as many employees as possible, but they also want that impact to be something tangible. And that's why it's a workshop. So we actually work on the stuff during the 1 to 2 hour workshop. It's not something where you hear a load of insights and then go away and have to put them into practice by yourself. We do it together. So that seems to be a really popular way of working with me inside an organization. And you know how to contact me if that's of interest. So with all of that said, I look forward to connecting with you next time. And thanks for listening. Bye-bye.